morning. This morning we find ourselves in the offices of the Minister for Government Communications. He's also the presidential spokesperson. It's the second time we're coming to his office. It seems like it is not an annual affair. And we're hoping that he'll make it maybe monthly so that we can have monthly updates of what is happening within government and get some responses. It's Felix, Kwakye, Ofosu. Good morning to you.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, and it's nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you too.
It's been
First
quite
time
a
we
while.
met this year.
Yes. And Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you too, and the entire station.
One of the very first things that happened this year was the first anniversary of President John Mahama's return to government. But let's start first from you. You are Minister of State responsible for government communication, presidential spokesperson. Everybody assumes they know what you're supposed to do. From your own mouth, what was the president's explicit instructions to you as to what Felix was supposed to do for him in his administration?
Well, I was supposed to speak for him and his government and ensure that the government communication machine works as smooth and ensure the timely and accurate dissemination of government information, whilst at the same time taking charge of all the agencies that were under the defunct Ministry of Information to ensure that we work in a manner that meets the objective. So these were the clear instructions that I received from his executive president.
1 year on, how's it going?
But I would say that is gone for everyone. We don't have it to help the president achieve his objectives. It's one thing for government to perform. It's one thing for the president to do his work. But it's quite another thing for the citizenry to be updated and kept abreast of what is happening. Especially in an area where disinformation is growing because of the power of social media and the advent of artificial intelligence and all other tools that are available for misuse in that regard. So it's necessary to have a sharp communication system that is responsive to inquiries by the public, that is responsive to inquiries by the media like we are doing now, and that is able to proactively manage and disseminate information relating to the president, the presidency, and the government as a whole. There's also an entire information dissemination architecture that exists within the various government departments and agencies, and all of them have to be coordinated so that we speak with one voice and that we have seamless flow of information. So I guess that we'll be able to do our best in that regard. All the key issues that the public must know of have been disseminated as and when it has become necessary to respond to issues we've done so in a timely fashion. We also have a proactive approach, and that manifests with the government accountability series, where on a weekly basis, key sector ministers are brought to the presidency to account to the people of Ghana for their stewardship, indicate what they've done and what they will do going forward. Only yesterday, or a few days ago, the Minister for Trade was here to unveil the sort of work that has been done under his watch and the plans that they have going forward. Almost all the key ministers have been here. So far, it's gone very well. It's covered widely by the media. And the issues that emanate from it often set the pace for public discussions. And I think that's so that we are able to proactively keep the audience informed about what the is doing. As the year goes on, we introduce more innovative approaches. We adopt more measures, more strategies to enhance the work that we do. And we will also take advantage of emerging technologies to ensure that this is done.
You and I realize that the longest in terms of the government accountability series is when you decided to appear on your own platform. The questions came from all angles. Has it been a daunting task that trying to, because everybody then will come to you for all information on virtually everything? How has it been like?
Yes, it's a very hectic schedule. It means that you have to keep yourself apprised of everything that is happening in the government. Fortunately, I have enjoyed the fullest cooperation from my colleagues in government. So because of that relationship that we have established, I'm able to glean information as quickly as possible. And every information that I require, I get it good time. And then a decision is made as to first whether or not that information should be put out. And the means by which that should be done. So that is where the strategy comes in. Because it is not enough to just put out information, you want to put out in a manner that is receptive, that people can receive and understand, and a manner that helps people to follow what is happening. So it's quite a daunting task, and I guess that it is something that I have been prepared for. So I'm doing my best.
Is that why the president chose you? Because everybody from watching you communicate realizes you have quite a capacity for processing large information fast. Do you think that's why the president actually chose you to do this job?
Well, I'm sure if the president thought I couldn't do it, he wouldn't have given me the opportunity. Fortunately, I've had occasion to learn under a couple of seniors. Honorable Mama Yariga in 2013 I was deputy. Then the late Dr. Chukuba was his deputy. So it provided me, as it were, a learning ground to hone my skills and gain a bit more experience in the way that government works and how to manage information. And when I went to the team, I happened to have worked closely with President Mama, who became former president at the time. So through that process, I was also able to gather significant experience in how to manage information. So I think those experiences have come in handy and have impacted the way that I've carried out my responsibilities.
And aside yourself, the other ministry I realized has been to the Government Accountability Series a couple of times. The Minister for the Attorney General and Minister for Justice on the matter of Aura. Is that because you feel Aura is a running concern?
So absolutely it is. It was a cardinal promise that we made to the people of Ghana. So as I said, it is one thing to deliver and inspire another to keep people informed and let them appreciate that we are doing the work that they ask you to do. In fact, even the Bible says it, that you cannot light a candle and put it on the table. You need to put it on a lamp so that it shines a light to guide the path of those who walk the road. So if the Attorney General is carrying out his responsibilities, there are occasions where he has to take certain decisions. People are arrested, people are interrogated, some are detained for a bit of time. Some are taken to court and various charges are preferred against them. It is important that he accounts for that so that an impression is not created that he's just abusing power and that without due cause, he simply goes for people, harasses them and exposes them before the court. It is necessary to carry the public along and also keep them updated on the specific steps being taken to do that Aura. And that is how come the Attorney General has been here a couple of times. The reason is that he has many cases to deal with. Indeed, there are as many as 280 cases that he's pursuing. And about 20 of them. 280. In fact, every case that is contained in the oral reports is being investigated. So he's doing the investigations through local, the police CID, and the National Intelligence Bureau. So these three organizations are the main entities that he's using. And among these three organizations, I know that in excess of 100 people have been arrested, some have been questioned, some have been granted, some are before court. There are some of them whose cases are being docketed. In other words, they are putting a docket on those cases. And pretty soon they will go to court. Quite a number of them are already in court. Some cases are in court. So that actually belies the claim that oral is not working. There are some who say oral are failed. I don't know exactly what they mean when they say that.
In
when
fact,
it is clear.
People from even within your party feel.
You see, I think that we have a history as a country. There was a time when extrajudicial means were used to exact accountability from people. And if you look at the extent of lots and raising thefts and corruption that took place under the NPP, it is understandable that people yearn for a certain rapid and expeditious accountability process to ensure that people who engage in this wrongdoing are taken through processes to, as it were, punish them. Unfortunately, well, I won't say unfortunately, but our country is built on laws, and there's very good reason why due process is established. If Senna, you've done nothing, you should not be held to account. The only process through which you can determine whether you've done something or not is through the process that has been established for decades. At least since 1992, when we reverted to constitutional rule, we vowed as a country to govern ourselves by law. And the law requires that if you suspect somebody of committing a crime, you do ABC. That is precisely what the Attorney General has done. The promise of oral was never premised on extrajudicial. There's no way that we said that oral will be carried out through extrajudicial means. So the moment we suspect that someone has done wrong, we bring the person to we can't do that. That would be unacceptable. That would be abuse of power, it would be abuse of due process, and it would be most unjust. So justice has to be done in a manner that is fair to all. So every accused person must go through the right process. Every accused person must be given the opportunity to defend himself, so that those who get punished are only those who are found to have committed wrongs. So yes, there may be a multiplicity or a multitude of suspicion of wrongdoing. The oral preparatory team simply put together information from the public and other sources about what some people are suspected to have done. That will not be sufficient to take anybody to court. You have to conduct proper investigations by accredited state agencies or any other agents that they may use. Once that is done, you need to weigh the evidence. First of all, you need to find the evidence. Okay. Then you weigh the evidence, and then you make a decision as to whether or not this evidence will stand scrutiny in court. And then you go. Then the court then takes over and uses the law and their own processes to determine the guilt or otherwise. And then that process takes a bit of time, but it is proper that process is followed. You cannot circumvent it. Otherwise, you are not engaged in oral. You are not doing justice. You are doing injustice. You will be putting innocent people in prison, and that is not what oral is about. Oral is about using laws to exact accountability from people who are perceived or are thought or are found to have done some wrong against the state or violated any of our laws. So oral is very much on track. The Attorney General is doing what has to be done. And even those who attempted to escape the jurisdiction are being brought to heel. And it is all through the efforts of the Attorney General. So that is why he has been the most frequent participant at the government. It is all intended to keep the public constantly updated about what he is doing. And it's also a way through which he accounts for the exercise of the powers granted under our laws. Yes.
But does it make sense to you why many Ghanaians and like I keep referring to people within your party still feels that progress on oral is low? It's as if they're expecting that even there are people who even say by this time we should have jailed like 5.
But our process don't work like that. It is, you are not going, unless in very exceptional circumstances, you are not going to use a month or 2 to convict it. I mean, it has never happened in my history. I don't know any instance where that has happened. So it takes a bit of time. Because as I said, the process is clearly defined. And the Attorney General, once the matter goes to court, does not control the case again. All he does is to prosecute. In other words, he adduces evidence that Senna has indeed committed the offense that I say he has committed. It is then up to the court to determine the mode by which the trial is conducted, when the court hearings are to be conducted, and what time evidence has to be brought, and when judgment will be rendered, and when sentencing will be done. The court determines that. The court is independent of the executive. Okay. So the executive, through the Attorney General, after conducting investigations and being convinced that he has found sufficient evidence, will go to court and do what he has to do. But everything he does will be at the behest and on the say-so of the judge who is sitting on the case. So the Attorney General does not determine the duration of a trial. It is the court that does so. And it's important that we all appreciate this particular position. But any assertion that oral is not working on us is completely false. In fact, I have even heard members of the NPP say so. And then the same members will turn around and accuse government of witch hunting when some of their members accused of wrongdoing are taken to court. So clearly, you can disregard what we see. But there are people who are genuinely concerned about speedy, as it were, processes that lead to the punishment of those who they believe have done wrong. We all wish that the process should be fast. But as I said, we have to defer to the courts in that particular matter. That is how the system works.
You are an integral part of the 2024 campaign. Of all the things that you promised, it seems Sora is very, how do I put it, important to many people, including people within your party. Does it add up for you?
Awareness is extremely important. Yeah. But I think that the most important thing for all Ghanaians going into the 2024 is the state of the economy. There's no doubt about it. And you see clearly that once we have to shift to address the concerns with the economy, and now everybody attests that the economy is on a much better footing than we inherited. Editorial is important. We have done what is necessary to kickstart it and sustain the process until every case is investigated and assessed on its merits.
And I'll come back to to the economy. I wonder whether do you have an interest in what is happening in terms of the former minister for finance, who is currently before a U.S. immigration, facing a U.S.
Of course, the Ghanaian government, it is on the basis of representations made by the Ghanaian government to the U.S. authorities that this process is taking place at all. Okay. It was because the Attorney General began an extradition process that his visa was revoked, and the Attorney General has said so. And once his visa was revoked, it meant then that his immigration status needed to be ascertained by a court of competent jurisdiction in the United States. And then the extradition process would follow. So definitely, the Ghanaian government has an interest in what is happening. But we believe in the rule of law. We believe in due process. So let the process take its course. We believe that the Attorney General has made a sufficient case for Mr. Oforiatta's extradition to face the charges that the special prosecutor has preferred against him. So that the same process that everybody goes through, including members of his party, some of whom were in government with him, are going to agree that he goes through it. I don't think that any exceptions should be made. Otherwise, we'll be defeating a cardinal principle of justice, which is equality before the law.
Is there fear within government as to whether this will have a negative impact on the image of the country? Because there's a former finance minister who would prefer to fight for an immigration status in the US than return to his country even when he faces that humiliation.
No, I don't think that the country suffers any reputation damage. Every country in the world has a justice delivery system, even in the US. There are corrupt officials in the US. There are last year or so, there was a prominent senator who was accused of corruption and put on trial. Even the current president of the United States, when he was in position before the 2024 elections, was put on trial and convicted for some alleged offense. So their system recognizes that it doesn't matter who you are. Once you are believed to have offended the law in any way, shape, or form, you have to be dealt with according to the dictates of the law. So the same applies. I believe all civilized countries in the world have similar standards, and that is the same reason for which Mr. Oforiatta is being held. Mr. Oforiatta's party, the NPP, when they were in power, and did that against members of the then as well NDC government. They put some of our leading figures in court over many allegations of wrongdoing. Some were determined, others were set free according to the law. So nothing extraordinary has happened. Nothing untoward has happened. We expect that the due process will be followed. And eventually, the state will have opportunity to question Mr. Oforiatta and determine whether or not there is basis to, as it were, proceed further in terms of a trial or any other judicial action that will be necessary.
Well, let's move on because the president is outside the country. He's in Davos, I believe. Yes, we understand you'll be leading an engagement on what is called the Accra Reset. What is the Accra Reset, first of all?
So I think that the statement that I issued was self-explanatory. Essentially, there has been concern over time that Africa does not have sovereignty on key issues economy, health, infrastructure, and other things that concern our development. We have been heavily reliant on external aid and support. And at no point was it more pronounced than when COVID struck. Even to obtain vaccines, we had to be at the mercy of friendly countries and other like-minded international institutions. So it was thought that that situation would no longer persist. Otherwise, we'll be heading for complete disaster in the event that a similar occurrence happened in the future. So initially, it was primarily focused on health sovereignty. So you recall that sometime in August last year, a conference was held in Accra where President Mahama presided and outlined his vision for helping Africa to achieve health sovereignty. After that, then the Accra research said it was thought that that could be extended to cover other areas of life in Africa, economy, infrastructure, etc. So basically, there's a global coalition formed around the subject with President Mahama in the lead. And every now and then it becomes necessary to confer with stakeholders and hold these important discussions to chart the way forward and ensure that the objectives of the Accra research are realized. So Accra has become like the melting pot for this sort of ideation on how to wean Africa of independence and ensure that we achieve sovereignty on key areas of our lives.
So leading the independence that SAGIFO actually preached on Independence Day. That's what Accra.
Of course, I think that it is a continuation of earlier attempts by our forebears to achieve the value that President Mahama has taken on the mountain and in close collaboration with other key stakeholders and international figures, he continues to forge on to ensure that we attain sovereignty over the areas that I've just mentioned.
And of course, the word reset was what you brought into office. In terms of reset, how far have you gone?
Well, I think we've gone very far. The country was in a state of putrefaction, to use a scientific term, which means that there was a lot of loss. There was a lot of institutional decay. Our economy was a complete tatters. It was a complete shambles. There was pervasive hardships and suffering. And people simply could not make ends meet. Unemployment was high. Our energy situation was dire. Basic services were in serious problems. Education was having major challenges. Health facing major challenges, and all of that. It was necessary to stop and reset, recalibrate, and ensure that we pull ourselves from it. And indeed, the result of the elections, which constitutes the single largest margin of victory for any individual since 1992, I believe, showed that Ghanaians agreed that it was time to do something about what was absolutely horrendous governance by the new People's Party. And the NDC's message found resonance with them. And they saw that our message contained key elements that would help achieve this reset. And since we've gone about it, even the way that government is composed, the way that government conducts itself, and the way that government has approached governance shows a remarkable departure from the past. The sheer numbers and size of government at the time portrayed a situation where there was a scramble for state resources by political operatives, as opposed to having an entity that is supervising or superintending the governance of the country. So the President said no. Indeed, I recall that yesterday was exactly 1 year since he met his promise to form government within 3 weeks of being elected. So yesterday was the first anniversary of the final list of ministerial nominees, which showed that the numbers have been drastically reduced. He promised 60 ministers. He did exactly that. Unfortunately, we've lost 2 of our colleagues through the August disaster. So we are now 58. And if you see the sort of achievements that have been chalked in a matter of 1 year, the sort of stability and improvement that we have brought to the economy, and how the cost of living has been tackled, and now it has come down significantly compared to 2024, and how we have fixed the energy sector, how we are fixing the education sector, how we are fixing the health sector, how we are dealing with issues of local government, and what have you. You see clearly that the reset is in full swing, and that given the opportunity, the next 3 years we should see even better outcomes.
Where do you intend to go to? Has the president spoken about how far he intends to take this reset?
So he is going forward to extend that his mandate permits. He believes that the economy has to be fixed. In other words, we have to, because of the instability that prevailed under there was a need first to stabilize. So last year, 2025 was a period of stabilization. This year, there's a period of consolidation. In other words, ensuring that the gains are sustained and building momentum towards infrastructure expansion, expanding the frontiers of agriculture, agriculture for economic transformation. We've heard that a program that we have where there are offerings in poultry production, in crop production, cereal production, livestock production, agri mechanization. This year, we are expecting in excess of 4,000 different pieces of equipment so that we can start farmer service centers that we promise to deliver key services to farmers in order to boost agriculture. The core executive program is in full swing. 3 million beds to be distributed to ensure that we boost poultry production. The aim is to ensure that we achieve self-sufficiency in poultry production in a matter of a few years, at least by the end of the tenure of the program. This is the objective that the agri industry, in their own strategic blueprint, have set themselves. There's a meat processing factory that was set up in Bechim, that was for which sod was cut in Bechim last year to ensure that once it is completed, we're able to process chicken and other meats to ensure value addition, so that we don't just produce poultry for the sake of it. So a lot is going on in various sectors, which will come together to ensure that people see an improvement in their lives. There's a 24-hour economy, for instance, which is going to start this year because budgetary allocation has been made for the implementation of 110 million. It's supposed to help set up the 24-hour economy authority, set up the systems and structures so that they can bring private sector players and other public institutions on board for them to benefit from the incentives that were promised, with a view to ensuring that we have an economy that never sleeps, that results in economic expansion, that creates additional jobs for our youth who have suffered for a long time with unemployment and all that. With energy, for instance, there's a plan to add 1,200 megawatts of generation capacity, which is state-owned, and which runs on gas, which is a cheaper source of fuel. This will ensure that we have reliable, stable energy supply at a cost-effective production rate, which then will translate into cheaper tariffs for the consumer, so that we are not held to ransom by foreign IPPs and all of that. We are able to control the way that sector operates in terms of financing. A couple of weeks ago, the financial announced the clearance of about $1.4 billion in arrears in the sector. The IPPs expressed satisfaction at that development because it has freed up their otherwise clogged financial position. And this can only be positive news for all of us. So a lot has happened already. A lot more is going to happen. The Women's Development Bank, for instance, work has gone quite far. Very soon it will be rolled out so that our women folk have a source of capital to engage in some meaningful economic activity, to earn a living for themselves and be able to support their families. The apprenticeship program, indeed, at the end of this month, I have been invited to participate in distribution of equipment and accessories to applicants who have gone through training so that they can set up their own small businesses after having gone through apprenticeship. And this has happened. This has been done across the country for thousands of Ghanaian youths. The Jumeirah process is also ongoing. We've trained thousands of Ghanaian youths. Very soon, we will support some of them with some capital. Indeed, yesterday, the Trade Minister revealed that close to 200,000 Ghanaian youth have been trained in apprenticeship, and several thousands amongst them have been given startup equipment to set up their own businesses and be able to engage in the crafts that they elect. And once you do that, you've created employment. And those people are also going to be able to employ one or more, two more people to help them to do the work that they've been trained for and giving capital and other incentives like equipment for. And that all of that is aimed at tackling the issue of unemployment. And once the 24-hour economy kicks in and we have companies operating around the clock, definitely space will be created for additional employment. So that there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of youth who are looking for jobs to earn some income to take care of themselves and their families. Also have that need. So this year is a year of action, and a lot is going to happen under the budget of the whilst we are at it, our infrastructure will also see significant expansion already. We've seen the rollout of a big push. Last year, 13.9 billion Ghana cedis was set aside for it. This year, 30 billion Ghana cedis has been set aside for it. And that is what 30 billion, yes. So that is what 49 billion Ghana cedis. And the chunk of it is going into fixing our roads, the major arterial roads. Very soon, the Minister of Finance will make an announcement on funding for the new expressway between Accra and Kumasi, which cuts travel time significantly and also ensures safer transit between Accra and Kumasi. Those that will inherit are also receiving funding. The Kumasi road, about $70 million was released to the contractor last year. You see that work is progressing very, very fast. And from all indications, it should be completed this year. The one between Kasua and Cape Coast is also a willing event. It's also being worked on. It's progressing steadily. The one that goes to Ho is also being worked on. The one that goes to Dodua is also being worked on. The one that goes to Ada is also being worked on. So you find that the key arterial routes will be opened up further, expanded to aid rapid transportation among these between these cities. So all of that is going to happen this year. We are set that by the time that the year goes to an end, we should see a significant improvement in the standard of living for people like that.
A few things. First, back to 24-hour economy. And I recall the Accelerated Export Development Program that the President says he personally superintended. When should we see some rollouts?
Well, I think that this year, the 24-hour economy program is going to work hand in hand with the Accelerated Export Development. Yesterday, the Trade Minister attacked it when she addressed the media here. The whole idea is first to help us achieve self-sufficiency in key areas, and then be able to make us export oriented. That is the final organic solution to the perennial problem of depreciation of the Ghanaian cedi. Because once we are export oriented, it means that activity alone brings in a lot of foreign exchange, which addresses the demand problems that have often plagued us. Thankfully, because of the Gold Bond Agreement, we have sufficient forex, which is made available to the market. And that is what has resulted in stability. Not just stability, significant appreciation. In the last year, the cedi appreciated by around 40% against the dollar, and significant margins against the British pound and euro, which is almost unprecedented, at least in the 32, 33 years that the Fourth Republic has been around. And it was because of a deliberate policy. This is also complemented by greater fiscal discipline. Mm-hmm. The decision by this government, by His Excellency the President and Finance Minister, that we are not going to countenance any indiscipline in terms of public finances, that we are not going to allow budget overruns to become the order of the day as it was under the previous administration, that every expenditure item will have to be budgeted for, and that even if it is budgeted for, you still have to seek what we call commitment authorization to make government aware, the finance minister aware, that such an expenditure is being incurred and charged against the public purse, so that resources are made available for it. You cannot sit in a ministry and unilaterally award contracts without recourse to the center or the people who are going to make the payment. In this case, the finance ministry, even the procurement processes are being streamlined. Give is being rigidly enforced to ensure that people do not operate outside of the system and incur liabilities for government, which then become a problem going down along the line. So all these are being done to ensure that the economy is put in a much better position for the benefit of everyone.
The NPP still insists that the 24-hour economy was just a campaign promise.
Well, they've insisted on limited. I think that the poor governance that they delivered led to their exit. One would have thought that they would have regrouped and make more informed criticisms of government. But it appears that they are still in a confused mood and say things that, quite frankly, on many occasions defy logic. So they are free to say whatever they want, but it will not stop us from doing what is necessary to implement the policies that we promise the program and you consume the rule as well. So there will be no doubt about what has been done or what has not been done.
On the expressway, does President Mahama intend to start and finish that road within his term?
Well, of course, the processes are underway. The most important thing is to start as quickly as you can and ensure that a good job is done. You can trust that the government will ensure that a good job is done. That for me is the issue, and that it is finished within the time frame that is set, so that we don't have unnecessary cost overruns and implementation delays which then can undermine the gains that otherwise should have been achieved. So a lot of work is ongoing. Very soon, more information will come available.
Yeah, and I'm asking because the tendency of governments will take over to defund critical projects like that one has happened in many cases. What are the assurances that if he's not able to finish it within his tenure,
well,
doesn't follow?
Well, the point is that as much as possible, funding will be made available. So, in the most unlikely case that a new government replaces this one, and it's not an NDC government, and they abandon it, they will have a program to contain it. So that would be the ultimate check on that government. This is clearly a laudable, absolutely brilliant initiative to ease the transportation difficulties between Accra and Kumasi, which are the two most important cities in Ghana in terms of economic activity, in terms of commercial activity, and what have you. So if such an intent is expressed and work clearly starts and it gets to a point, and a new government has to come in and do it, so we will have a block. I think that it will be an untenable proposition in my view. But very soon, the financials will make an announcement of it.
And I know you've used it many times, the current Accra Kumasi road. Clearly, a lot of work needs to be done on that road. There's some work currently ongoing. Are there assurances that those work will continue? That road will be improved, put in good shape?
Well, I think the president himself has publicly assured that the current works that are ongoing will continue and completed. But even if it's completed, the very nature of that road, the unique designs, what have you, creates a certain bottleneck, and it takes too much time to move between Accra and Kumasi. That is why the new expressway has been envisioned and will be constructed to ease the burden. So people will have options. You can go on the existing one or go on the new one, depending on which one you think will take you there quicker and more and safer. So the choice will become that of the block. The government would have done this part by opening up another corridor which ensures speedy transportation between Accra and Kumasi. And the economic benefits are enormous because that project comes with so many ancillary projects which in themselves will generate significant economic value for the program. Also, mind you, the sheer number of lives that are lost on the existing road will be significantly minimized when the new expressway is built, because it will be safer and to have adequate safety measures to ensure that we curb the unfortunate loss of lives that occurs in the existing road.
So are you happy with the progress on the big push roads since most of them were commissioned?
Oh yes. What do you call it? There are many roads that are on the country. Very soon we'll begin to show pictures and videos of these for them. But the people who will live in those communities see them on a daily basis. And therefore, the there's no dispute about the kind of work that is going on. You've seen the road between Accra and you see what is happening. You see what is happening on the River stretch. You see what's happening on the Bukasi of our stretch. You see what's happening between Accra and Winneba. All of those are parts of the big push happening there. Another roads spread across the country. When we begin to show it, those who do not live in those communities will begin to see exactly what is happening. But there's no dispute that significant progress is being made. And the finance minister is in a position to pay once certificates are placed. Often, what delays these roads is financing. The contractor does the work to a point, he releases certificates, and it takes forever for the certificate to be collected. And so there's no incentive for the contractor to go back and continue. He probably may have gone for a loan to begin construction and therefore falls into debt and he is harassed by the financial institution from which he took the loan. And therefore, they are put in a very, very difficult situation. So they are in no position to continue the project. But the finance minister has clearly indicated that as far as big push came, if you raise a certificate within a matter of a month or 4 weeks, you should be paid so that you can continue the project.
And of course, let's stay on the matter because cars are the ones which have to ply those roads. And I know you have been involved in the debates over the state of intracity transports, public transportation especially. What are you learning from that whole debate in terms of government's participation, the state of public transportation within our cities and others?
Well, I think that, again, there's a remnant of poor governance from the previous government. It didn't appear like they made any significant investments in public transportation. President Ofosu started the Metro Masters. Before that, there had been other interventions in the past. We had the STC. Then private players came in to complement what government was doing. Then we had the trucks, which have been there for decades and have served as well all these years. But it was obvious that at some point, population growth and congestion and other factors were going to create a bit of a crisis. But again, that's almost everything else. The MPP did little to nothing about it. And so they nearly kicked the can down the road for the next government. Having come in, especially towards Christmas, you know that there's this annual phenomenon where there's some upsurge in movement towards the center of the city for trading purposes. People want to grab items to celebrate Christmas with them. So yeah, people come from living outside Accra to also do some trading and commercial activity around Christmas. So that naturally led to an increase in the number of people accessing public transport services. So that naturally, every time it happens, it creates a bit of congestion and gridlock in the city. But often, soon after the festivities, it eases. Now, the problem was exacerbated by what was clearly rent-seeking behavior by some private transport operators. What we noticed was that instead of going to accredited terminals and lorry stations, as we call it, they rather choose to lighter out in the hope of fleecing customers, creating a spatial shortage that so frustrates customers as to make them willing to part with far more than they should have paid so they can get to their destinations. That is what these drivers sought to do. So quickly, government responded to the Ministry of Transport by getting STC to release, I think, 40 minibuses in order that we deploy them on the routes that are known for heavy passenger movement. And that significantly eased the problem. Unfortunately, contrary to expectation, the numbers did not go down significantly after the Christmas festivities. It persisted, so it was necessary to do more. So the STC buses are put back there. Metro Mass is just on the verge of releasing additional buses, and 10 large capacity buses have been released. There have also been engagements with the private transport operators to curb this rent-seeking behavior. Indeed, only yesterday or the day before, I read that the GPRT itself had constituted a task force that had gone around to monitor the operations of their members, and they even clamped down on some members who they found to be engaging in rent-seeking behavior. So we expect that the situation will improve, but ultimately, more buses will come in. The management of the Metro Mass Transit has announced that they expect quite a number of buses sometime next month or so, if I'm not mistaken. to complement the numbers that we have. And then in due course, the full complement of buses will come, and then it will make enough buses available to meet the growing demand. But what is clear is that we need to reform our public transport system, both in terms of road transport, rail transport, and even air transport. Real light rail, some of the commitments that we present in due course, I think that it should be implemented and rolled out. It will complement the existing mode of transport. The roads clearly also have to get bigger, because narrow roads only lead to congestion, even if you have adequate numbers of cars. So the roads have to get bigger. That is precisely what we are doing through Big Push and other such initiatives. So we have a transport system that is fit for purpose, modern, and responsive to the needs of Ghanaians, so that we avoid this unfortunate problem that we've had in recent days.
Yeah, is that an admission that our current transportation system within the city is not fit for?
I think that there are clear weaknesses. There are challenges that we must fix. If it was completely fit for purpose, we won't have the challenge that we have. Even if you take out the rent seeking behavior, there are still systemic problems. I don't think that the previous government invested enough in it. So it is clear that more investment has to go into it to modernize it, to make it more responsive to modern needs. As population grows and as more people move in and out of cities, it is necessary to have a transport system that enables this sort of movement, so that we don't have the challenges that we faced in recent times.
Two things. There's just on that matter to land. Our rapid bus transit system. There was a metro mass. Those two and I'm wondering what you had, the discussions you've been having in closed doors about the state of these two that were supposed to complement what we currently have. What state are they in?
Well, you recall that just before the reform, we introduced the Ayolo system. We had about 250 buses or so. But somehow the MPP poorly implemented because we got it at the tail end of President Ahmed's first term. When we left, the management of the Ayolo bus tells us that they inherited about 80 buses that were in good state. That's when we took over power this year. So clearly, it had almost been run down. And the objective for which it was set up had not been realized. It's going to be revamped. I think that in addition to the 80, a lot more have been brought on board, so we have more. And they've also been very helpful to address the present challenges that we've had with transportation, because they've also deployed some of their buses, rerouted some of their buses to more congested areas. In terms of metro mass transit, the situation was even worse. We are told that buses were sold for 2,500 cedis, but we were said to if like on service, the buses that should have fetched far more than 2,500. It shows you that corruption and greed and rent seeking were more important to the managers of that system than getting it to function for the benefit of the citizen. But they too are undergoing some restructuring. There's a new management in place that is trying to revamp the place, restructure the place. They expect some additional assets which should increase their fleet and enhance their operations. Once this is done, I think that they will be in a much better position to render the sort of critical services that they require. The Ayolo system too is going to be restructured and repurposed to meet the original objective of ensuring that we have a rapid transport system that responds to the needs of the economy.
And I'll conclude on the matter of the economy. But the minority wants your foreign affairs minister. They even go to the extent of describing him as immature, that some of his press statements are undiplomatic and will create more problems. They blame him for recent visa restrictions, among others. I'm sure you've had the opportunity of watching the video of the minority addressing the press on that. What's government's opinion?
Well, I think that the minority suffers what I would term as strategic illiteracy.
Strategic illiteracy.
It doesn't appear that they've learned anything from their ignominious defeat in 2024. You see, in the same way that government is accountable to people, because ultimately we hold power in trust for the people, we hold the resources of the people in trust for them. the minority, by virtue of being MPs, are also public officials and also are subject to scrutiny, and therefore a certain minimum standard of conduct is expected of them. So they are not allowed to engage in comical displays, say things that defy logic, say things that cannot stand the test of the minimum scrutiny, things that cannot stand minimum scrutiny. First of all, how does an MP go out and say that the United States of America makes foreign policy in response to what the foreign minister of another country has said? I mean, which country behaves that way? So 75 countries are said to have been placed on some list where people can no longer access immigrant visas. And our minority says the 75 countries have been banned because our foreign minister said something about some international. I mean, what kind of logic is this?
They say we were.
It is abysmal. You see, this sort of logic is abysmal. They are not living up to even the most minimum standard. You understand me? An MP has the same level of expectation in the eyes of the public as a minister of state. And therefore, what they say should carry weight, it should have merit. Even if you disagree with them, you should respect what they have said. Because it is sound. It's only a matter of disagreement. But what they say must be sound, it must be logical. It must make sense to the average man on the street. What they have said does not make sense by any stretch of the imagination. How do you blame the foreign minister for Mr. Trump's policy? How is that possible? So Nigeria, Egypt, these are significant countries. Iraq, Iran, Russia, and all those 74 other countries who have been banned. Did their foreign minister say anything in order to elicit the ban? And you see, this attempt to constantly put the foreign minister under unnecessary harassment because of his firm, principled stance against the NPP party is all too clear. Every opportunity they get, they simply want to make him the subject of discussion in retribution for the firm and principled position he took against their poor governance. That's all that it is. But you see, my shock is that this narrative initially emerged from low-level NPP propagandists on social media. You can live with that because they do not have any, if you like, responsibility to live up to certain expectation. They are members of the public like anybody else. So they can say what they want, so far as it is within the bounds of the law. But for MPs to pick up what these NPP propagandists are saying and bring it to the level of parliamentary commentary shows a certain abysmal level of strategy formulation in the NPP. It is almost insults the intelligence of the Ghanaian, because what they are saying simply does not make any sense. It doesn't happen that way. So what has the Egyptian foreign minister said to warrant this ban? What did the Nigerian foreign minister say? What has Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, said to warrant this ban? And how did what Honorable Kwakye result in a ban of Iran or Iraq or any of those on that list? The United States of America as a country has a right to formulate policy. So, indeed, my last encounter with the foreign minister on this matter showed that as of the time, at the time last week, formal communication has not been received. Okay. If between that time and now that has happened, I stand to be educated on that. I don't have a briefing on that as of now. But there's no way in that communication that it will be said that this is because the foreign minister expressed the same view that the African Union expressed on the Venezuela impasse, or that Israel has treated Ghanaian officials in a manner that we did not find pleasant, and therefore the foreign minister has commented on it and taken reciprocal action. So because of that, the US will ban us. I mean, how can anybody come up with such a narrative? It is a most bizarre, unacceptable narrative. And that's why I said that they suffer strategic illiteracy. Somebody must be doing better thinking in that party so that the positions they espouse meet the minimum threshold that the people of Ghana expect them to have. At this stage, they don't have it. Some of the things they say are outlandish and completely out of tune with the minimum expectations of the people. No serious MP should be able to say what the minority said in respect of this particular matter. Our foreign minister is top-notch and is doing his level best to ensure that Ghana is placed on the pedestal. All countries have the right to determine their foreign policy and immigration policies. We also deport people all the time. We also deny people visas to the extent that we believe that they've not met certain requirements. When we came into power, there was an earlier ban, or if you like, a reduction from the granting of 5-year visas to 3 months. That was lifted after engagement with the American authorities. Even then, the reasons highlighted were clear. The way that our people overstay their visas and all that, especially students, contributed to that. So we had to give them assurances and take steps to ensure that that problem is addressed. And that ban was reversed. This is a new one, affecting 75 countries. So you cannot isolate the foreign minister of one country and accuse him of being responsible for what has happened. That is illogical in my candid view. And I expect my colleagues in parliament to know much better than dabbling in this with the greatest respect, comical politics that they are doing. What they are doing does not meet the basic threshold, minimum threshold of what an opposition party that is serious about carrying favor with the electorate and winning their trust should do. This is not what the likes of D.H. Mensa and Osafo Maf and Yaberema and Moswajima, Kandapa, even President Akufo-Addo and Co did when they were minority between 1996 and the year 2000, which convinced Ghanaians that they had what it takes to form government. Nobody is going to take this minority serious if they continue on this target. That is my honest view.
And you're saying this is because they have a tendency of going after one of the other.
It is clear. You see, there are a few people who they dislike because of their robust stance against the poor governance of Akufo-Addo and his NPP. That is all that it is. So every now and then, they go for these things because it does not make any sense at all. You know, when it was being said on social media by this, one could live with it. As I said, you can't hold them at the same standard that you hold an MP. But I at least expected that members of parliament will go and take what MP propagandists are saying on social media, which lacks logic and substance, and propel it to the level of parliamentary discourse. It is very, very poor politics on their part. If they wanted to gain political credits, this is the worst possible way to do so. Because no serious-minded Ghanaian will be convinced about what they're saying. Because they know that it doesn't make sense. That is not how countries operate. Why? The AU condemned the happening in Venezuela and called for respect for international rule. China did say, has China suffered any ban from the US?
Is that to suggest that on the issue of Venezuela, on the issue of Gaza, on the issue of US attack on Iran, the president agrees completely with the positions taken by the foreign minister?
The foreign minister cannot take a position contrary to that of government. So when the foreign minister speaks, he has expressed the view of government. But Ghana, as a sovereign country, has the right to express views on international development. If there's a belief that some international law is not being adhered to, there's nothing wrong with insisting that international laws should be respected. President Obama was at the UN and he highlighted the situation in Gaza and expressed a view and called for respect for international law and order. How does that attract anybody? Has the US told anybody that they have banned government because of what any government official has said? And is that how international relations are actually conducted? No. So the positions of the minority must be more nuanced. They must move away from this level of obscurantism because you see, they intentionally causing the debate. What they are doing, they are shedding heat, not light. And no enlightened citizen takes such a minority serious. If you want to win power, what you say must resonate with those that you are addressing. No reasonable person will accept this narrative. And indeed, that narrative has been met with widespread derision by large sections of the people of Ghana. People know that this cannot be serious. This is not what we expect the minority to get up and go and say. And that's why I have spoken about strategic literacy.
But there are those who are also of the opinion that I think the way that they use the phrase "might is right." We must also, in the interest of Ghana, be careful the kind of issues.
First of all, there is something called principle. You see, what is wrong is wrong. What is right. If you are going to tag along because the person doing the wrong is mighty, you cannot then assert your independence as a country. Also, we are an independent country. We are a country that is sovereign. What it means that we have the right to state our views on international matters. And there's nothing that has been said by the foreign minister that is offensive or goes against the grain in terms of international diplomacy. The positions that he's canvassed have been canvassed by other countries without any consequences. And trust me, there's nothing that he has said that is the result of, or there's nothing that has happened to this country that has resulted from anything that he has said. Nothing. It's a figment of the NPP's imagination. It is an absurd fantasy. They are dreaming up things in order to tarnish the image of the foreign minister. That is what that it is. It lacks complete substance. And indeed, I will tell them, say, if I have the opportunity to engage them in parliament, that is not how you conduct it. Because as a government, we are accountable to the people. The opposition has a right to hold our feet to the fire of accountability. But even that has to be done with some minimum quality. What they are doing is devoid of any substance. There's no quality to what they are doing. If MP propagandists on social media also say it, you can overlook it. Certainly not an MP. I don't expect members of parliament to go and hold a press conference and say this. It is abysmally poor, below the basic threshold. That is what is the case.
Then they also want your ambassador to the US record.
For what? What did the ambassador to the US do to contribute to the bank? In what way has Ambassador Smith, for instance, contributed to the bank? What is it?
In this particular case, they're talking about his commentary on the matter involving Ken Oforiatta.
Why should he resign because he's commented on? What has he said about Oforiatta's matter? That whereas his report, that he says that yes, he has confirmed that Oforiatta has been arrested. How is that inappropriate or improper to warrant his call? Again, where is the logic, basic logic in what they are saying? So a minister releases a statement and says that a citizen of Ghana has been detained by a US agency, ICE, and that we have determined that he's being held in this particular location, that on this date he is due to go to court. The minority is saying that because Mr. Smith has said this, he should be called. Why? What is the reason? You know, that's why I have questioned the quality of opposition that they are offering. Because we've seen minority parties in parliament before. The likes of Hawa Yakubu and Co, who were even independent MPs, gave more than what we are saying now. This is abysmal. Absolutely abysmal.
On another matter that I'm sure you're happy with, let's conclude on the matter of the economy.
Yes.
When are you organizing a Kinke party? Because we realized in the past, when the economies are doing well, people organize Kinke Wache party, they invite others. I've been waiting for my invite for some time. Everybody seems happy with the economy you are managing. So when are you?
Well, let's time we eat Kinke, invite him. But if you expect invitation from government to come and eat Kinke, that is not going to happen. Because we don't believe that is how you profit.
But you must be happy with the way things are.
We are happy to serve the people of Ghana, and we are happy to have implemented policies that have resulted in some relief for the people of Ghana. That is the extent of it for us. We don't believe that we need to hold parties or banquets or lavish, if you like, gatherings in order to celebrate this. No, that is why we are business-like, and we will continue to do more to ensure that the people of Ghana have the relief that is.
In fact, the IEA this morning, everybody was discussing the IEA survey, which says 58% of Ghanaians say they're happy with the way things are going. To those of you in government, what signal are you getting from that? The Ghanaians are excited to the point that now there are price wars even in between the Chamber of All Marketing Companies and Star, one of the biggest. That these are the discussions we have, a discussion on appreciation of the city, among others. Does that make you happy?
Well, we are gratified that the work we've put in is beginning to yield results. And as I said at the beginning of this interview, the cost of living and hardships were a major concern. If you check our manifesto, it is there. In the very first pages of our manifesto, we promised to ensure that we bring down the cost of living. And that is precisely why we promised things like the whole budget, to make for us. Because the way that our economy operates, it is import dependent. It is a regrettable situation. Indeed, we intend to work hard to reverse it so that we become more export oriented. But in the interim, the import dependency means that the exchange rate is a major determinant of the quality of life that people live. The moment the exchange rate goes south, it affects everything because many things are important. Many things that constitute the basic life of people every day are important. So if the exchange rate depreciates and the prices go up, it affects people's disposable income and how they are able to live. So it was a major source of concern. Indeed, I would argue that it was the single biggest reason for which the people suffered the humiliating defeat that they suffered. And therefore, it was necessary to move quickly to fix and address it so that it does not continue to pose problems and hardships for the government. And that is just what we've done. And because of that, we've seen a general decline in the cost of living. Prices have gone down. The price of most items, thousands of them, have gone down. There are a few which, because of the rent-seeking behavior of some actors in the economy, either remain the same or they have tried to increase. Even the steps have been taken to ensure that we will better. When the trade minister came, she alluded to it that if you go to observe, almost every spare part has been reduced. And she has been there herself to the market to do the survey herself, so she's seen what it is. Basic items, rice, flour, maize, gari, cocoa, the basic things that we consume on a daily basis, all have seen significant price reductions because the factors of reduction, the factors that will contribute to price, have all come down, and therefore there will be no justification whatsoever to increase. For instance, kinky, the price of maize has come down. If you prepare the kinky with gas, the price of gas has come down. Even if you use charcoal, it has come down. So what is it that would make you increase the price of kinky beyond rent seeking, wanting to make more profit than it's normal? You understand? So there's no incentive at the moment for people to increase price beyond rent seeking behavior. And even that is being tackled through constant engagement. There are those who have called for price control, but it has its negative effect because it can also lead to hoarding. When people will intentionally create artificial shortage so that they can drive up prices if you do that. So, and it's been tried before, it was not successful. I don't think that is a way to go at this moment. Once competition is intense, as we are seeing in the oil sector today, there are some that are offering breakfast, and others who have insisted that despite the breakfast that are being offered by others, they have much of that price. It can only inure to the benefit of the consumer. People who used to buy fuel at a certain price now are buying it at about half of what they used to buy it at, and therefore it can only be good for the consumer. We are gratified that that is the situation, and we intend to do more to further ease the burden on the program.
The MPP says the cost of managing the city to this level is too steep. That if they spend that amount of money within a year, the city will be doing far better.
So now there's no cost. What cost? Well, let's put it in perspective.
They spent 10 billion.
No, but we've not spent 10 billion. The Bank of Ghana has only sold $10 billion to the market. That's all. They've sold. The Bank of Ghana sells forex. The law that sets it up allows them to sell forex. So they've sold it and taken the city equivalent. So the equivalent of that $10 million has been taken by the Bank of Ghana and sitting in their votes. So when you say they've spent, people speak as though the Bank of Ghana has 10 billion and that is like revenue. The way that government will use taxes, for instance, to go and build a hospital, to go and build a road or a school. That's not what the Bank of Ghana has done. People need forex for trading purposes. Indeed, the Bank of Ghana, their reserves, one of the primary reasons to having the reserves is called import cover. So that when you need foreign exchange to import items that we need, you will be able to do some. Now we know that if you constantly deplete your reserves in order to achieve the objective of imports, it has its own negative effects because then it creates problems for you. Your currency depreciates and all that. And if you have to meet certain commitments, you will not be able to find it. It puts you in a difficult situation. So they ensure that we have what we call forex liquidity, in that we have sufficient foreign exchange to give to those who need it to import and meet the needs of the people of Ghana. How do you do it? We ensure that we block gold smuggling so that gold that is produced in Ghana is regulated by a central authority. So that when it is sold, the proceeds can come here and we can use it for the purpose for which we require the funds. That is what has happened. So the Bank of Ghana has not spent 10 billion. The Bank of Ghana has sold the equivalent of $10 billion to market players and taking the city equivalent for their own purposes and operations. That is what. It is not like putting your hands into government coffers to go and give to anybody. No, that is not what has happened. So we need to correct that narrative. Anybody who says that is not being accurate.
Should we expect this to continue for 2026?
You see, it is proving to be a prudent fiscal measure. For as long as we have access to forex and people need it, it must be made available to them. There is talk of some $240 million. But if you look at the benefits that 34 million people have derived from the city's appreciation, then you know that it is a good policy which needs to be sustained. Of course, handled in a manner that does not create difficulty for all of us as a country, all of us as a people. But any measure that ensures that the cost of living is under control is much appreciated by the people, and it must be done. Otherwise, the suffering that people experience under the NPP will be continued. You want people to suffer in the way they suffer that when, as a government, we can implement innovative policies to ensure that that does not happen as we've done now. I don't think so.
Clearly, a lot of progress, multi-dimensional poverty is going down. DSS assess so. Should we
close to 1 million people escaped multi-dimensional poverty?
Should we expect this trajectory to continue?
It's a trajectory that we need to work hard to sustain, and we will do everything that is necessary to ensure that people of Ghana live comfortably and meaningful lives.
Let me conclude by asking you, when I started doing analysis, there's a memory that has always stuck in my head, yourself or Mani, and then Samuel. I realized that when the August 6th happened, you only wrote one thing on Facebook. Oh, my brother. That was the only thing you wrote on Facebook. Have you gotten to the point where you are comfortable about talking about him?
Oh, of course.
Acceptance?
Yes, the initial shock was quite monumental. It was very difficult to convey how I felt about that unfortunate tragedy. And I don't think that the pain will ever ease. It will not. But there's little one can do about it, so we live with it. It is a tragic loss. A loss of monumental proportions. I mean, Dr. Mane is almost irreplaceable. I've known him for 20 years, since 2005. Indeed, it was through Honorable Ahmed that I met him. And since the first day I met him, we struck an unbreakable bond, which only death has managed to break. I recall that what had happened was that we had come from University, we were members of the union at the time, and there had been an increase in the academic facilities and fees. So we thought of haranguing the government of the day. I think it was President Ofosu. So we said that we were going to, because we had noticed that normally the SRC of University or NUCS as a student's body would take up the challenge and confront government over the increase and demand restoration of normalcy. But we noticed for some reason that there was some quiet on that front, and therefore we thought that now then the mantle fell on us to voice our concern and frustration at that particular, because it was leading to hardships for our parents who were paying our fees. So what had happened was that we needed guidance because we were green-eyed, bright-eyed newbies, as it were. We didn't know much about political organization. Therefore, we needed guidance from people who were more experienced. So at the time, Honorable Harry Nekusu was national organizer. So he was the natural contact go-to person for us. So we came all the way to Accra after scheduling an appointment with him to meet him. When we met him, he told us that he was not organizer, but the one who worked more closely with student organizations and mobilization in that regard was Dr. Kwakye. So he gave us his contact to contact him. We indeed contacted him, and he was very pleasant. He listened to us, appreciated what we did. So we basically did a draft of the statement, sent it to him, he edited it. I think the Honorable Black also edited it. And then it was fake. It was a resounding success because it really caught attention. We got a lot of media mileage. So it was through his guidance that since then we struck up. Not at all, even the brother actually. And then we have served the government on 2 different occasions. I had the honor of announcing his appointment as a defense minister. And all that. Indeed, I had seen him on 4th August. That was the day of the Accra visit. And there's an famous picture of him, myself, and Dr. Ampo sitting on the front row and conferring over something. And he told me at that gathering that he would be leaving for the program in Ofosu, because he was at the time working closely with the Lands and Forestry, Natural Resources Minister, and the Interior Minister to fashion out a strategy to combat the NAMC. And therefore, that program was important. It was a key strategy that we had adopted to help fight the NAMC. So he was going to go. I said, okay. So I expected to see him later. And then the unfortunate tragedy occurred. Whilst I was at the activity series at the time, the fisheries minister, that tragedy occurred. I only returned to this office to find out that is what has happened. But at the time, one needed to put himself together to help manage the complications around it. It was a very difficult period. Very, very difficult. One was lost from this. I mean, no amount of words could explain the pain and anguish that I felt. And therefore, I thought it was best to minimize what I said. And I don't think that the pain will ever leave.
Still feel that pain.
Absolutely.
But it's nice to hear you.
Indeed, there was a time that, very recently, there was a day that there was a matter that had happened, and I needed to confirm it. I nearly called. Yes.
Oh, you nearly called this
I nearly called his phone. I picked my phone to dial his number, and then it occurred to me that he was home. Because he was already good. I was naturally going to speak to him on that particular matter.
So you still
seek his advice and counsel on the way forward. And it shows you the level of closeness that existed. But the pain will never leave. But I guess I would have to make do with it. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The pleasure is all mine.
Yes. And well, Minister for Government Communications, also Presidential Spokesperson, giving us some time at his office this morning. And of course, like I said, hopefully we'll get to do this later on this year. This Radio Gold 90.5 FM. Stay tuned.